next speaker is Indianna Turkisher. She is a sixth-generation Alaskan hailing from the Emerald Isle of Kodiak and now living in Anchorage. She's worked in a myriad of Alaska's different job industries, including fishing, tourism, customer service, nonprofits, and slinging the best cups of coffee around. Although she's lived in many other places, including Montana, Oregon, and Florida, Alaska always calls her home. As the advocacy manager at the ACLU of Alaska, she's working to make sure the state she loves so much becomes a place where everybody has an opportunity to thrive, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, criminal background, socioeconomic status, or religious affiliation.
How y'all doing? So I'm the advocacy manager, obviously. I do a lot of organizing, so I'm typically behind the scenes, so this is a little new for me, but I kind of like it, and I heard that there were some assembly seats, I think, that you could still file for. Isn't competition healthy? So at the first Women's March that I attended in 2017, a friend of mine was also there, and she's been an activist for decades in Alaska, and when I met her there, she was holding up, she said, "I can't believe we're still protesting this stuff." There's actually a person here with a sign that has a more honest example of what it was that she said. This year marks 57 years since the Equal Pay Act was passed. This landmark piece of legislation was signed into law during a really tumultuous time in American history. Not too unfamiliar with what is happening in our country today. In 1963, through the violence and hate and injustices systemically built into the American way of life, there were really great leaders being born, and women were rising. The Equal Pay Act was passed. Our grandmothers, great-grandmothers, their daughters, and their granddaughters would finally get their long overdue, well-deserved bite of the American dream. But we're here, it's 2020, we're still protesting this stuff. We're strong, we're independent women, we're educated, we're worldly, and we're badass subsistence hunters. We're business owners, blue-collar workers, and guess what? We're still fighting for equality and for equal pay. Here's what this looks like in Alaska. The difference between a man and a woman's median annual earnings is $13,000. That doesn't even pay for a 4-year degree at a community college, which I don't think we have one in Alaska that I'm aware of. White women make about 78 cents for every dollar a man makes. That's about $47,000 in median annual earnings. That's nearly impossible to support yourself on in Alaska, let alone a family. And it gets profoundly worse for people of color. Asian women make about 50 cents for every dollar a man makes. For the men in the room, look around and imagine living your life with half of what you have now, half of the money that you make right now, and still trying to make your life work. Hispanic women make about 54 cents for every dollar a man makes. Black women make about 64 cents for every dollar a man makes. And for Native American and Alaska Native women, they make about 58 cents for every dollar a man makes. It's about $40,000 a year. I don't know about you, but Alaska feels like a pretty expensive state to me, and that's not very much to put yourself through and your family through. And studies show that if you're a transgender woman, earnings fall nearly 1/3 after a gender transition. None of that sounds very equal to me. And we could talk a lot about why this is the way that it is. We could talk about how unfair this is and how this makes us angry. And those are really important and valuable conversations to have. But what I'm interested in doing today, in this room full of brilliant minds and hearts, is solving this problem once and for all. I don't want to be here again in 40 years when I'm 70, demanding pay equality. I want to fix it now. I have better things to do with our time. Let's let 2020 be the year where women stop apologizing and stop repeating themselves. The gender wage gap squeezes our pocketbooks, it drastically deprives women of their earning potential and the adequate means to improve our lives and support our families. Who in this room has bills? Exactly, we all have them. And I know that my rent and my groceries and my utility bills, you name it, it's just as expensive as a man's, right?
Right.
But my ability to make ends meet is far more challenging. So women, we gotta rise and we gotta act now. We deserve equal pay, and good legislation is what's gonna help us.
Yes.
And so here's where we're gonna start. The gender pay gap starts really early in a woman's career, and it follows her from job to job. Over the course of a woman's life, she will be robbed of hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the systemic issues built into society. Studies have proven this. Employers who inquire or rely on prior salary history when setting the salary of new hires only perpetuate the problem, because if you've already been getting paid less your whole life and somebody wants your salary compensation, that is used to determine your new salary, which is still going to be relevant to what you're making before. We have to end the reliance on prior salary information. Also, about 60% of employees working in the private sector are either forbidden or strongly discouraged from discussing their pay with colleagues. This needs to end. This just helps the people who have the most not be able to communicate with their colleagues who don't make as much. Punitive pay secrecy policies enable wage discrimination not only to persist, but to become institutionalized. Lack of disclosure about salary ranges for job ads also contributes to the problem. I don't know about you, but I found it really time consuming to apply for a job. You have to update your resume, you gotta check and make sure your references are good. You have to take sometimes time off work to go to a job interview. And all of that is already hard enough. Employers need to disclose the salary ranges for a job up front, because that says what the job is worth and not what the person is worth. That's how we should be identifying how to pay people for their positions. There's a bill that was pre-filed yesterday though, and it is called HB 200. It addresses all of these issues. This isn't new. A lot of states have already done this. And now's the time to call your legislator and tell them to support HB 200. The theme of the Women's March taking place across the country today is Rise Up. And now's the time to finish the job women have been working on for more than a century. We want equality. So talk to your elected leaders. Remind them they work for the people. They work for us. In our nation's capital, there's a piece, I already read that part, I'm sorry. Well, another part of, I was not prepared for that, I apologize. Anyways, call your legislators on the vote for HB 200 and kick some ass.